So he did that with a smile on his face. It was more of a rhetorical framework of just being fit and rested, because he was burning at both ends that last 10 or so days. And I think that was sort of what he was reflecting, is just a more steady focus on being his energetic self. So it wasn't a literal 8 o'clock I will be doing things differently. It was more figurative. Look at his schedule. Look at the fundraising things that you don't see. All that work, the work you're doing behind the scenes, the phone calls you're making all times of night, the alliance management, everything's doing to prepare for NATO this week, work they're doing to land a deal with Hamas and Israel. So that's called human, and God bless. I like when a president acknowledges they're human, and so I think people are reading in between the lines a lot too much on that.
The United States finds itself in a leadership crisis that is, I think, unprecedented. How bad is it? Well, consider this. President Joe Biden is on a desperate rehabilitation tour, trying to salvage his presidency after last week's disastrous debate. And I tell you what, it's not going well. Just a little while ago, Joe Biden called into Philadelphia radio station WURD to make his pitch, and, well, have a listen.
By the way, I'm proud to be, as I said, the first vice president, first black woman, served with a black president.
Did you catch that? Did he just say that he was proud to be the first black woman to serve with a black president? I don't know. But anyway, then there was this.
I remember as a Catholic kid growing up in an area where we didn't like, Catholics didn't get along. I'm the first president elected statewide in the state of Delaware when I was a kid.
And won Delaware when he was a kid. Well, there you go. I can't even make sense of that. Now, just hours before that interview, Joe Biden, who is thanks in no small part to First Lady, that's Dr. Jill Biden to you, holding on to his geriatric fingertips to the presidency, well, he made a pitch to state governors concerned about his ability to do the job. No, everything's fine, he said. Yes, he admitted age has indeed wearied him. He conceded this, but again, he said it was fine. Because, you see, he has promised to, well, let me read to you what the New York Times reported. Quote, President Biden told a gathering of Democratic governors that he needs to get more sleep and work fewer hours, including curtailing events after 8 p.m., according to 2 people who participated in the meeting and several others briefed on his comments, unquote. Now, this, by the way, from the same New York Times that just 3 weeks ago completely bought into the idea that all the reports on this show and everywhere else documenting Joe Biden's condition were just the result of, quote, misleading videos trailing Biden, unquote. Well, I'm going to deal with the New York Times and their ilk a bit more in a moment. But first, and it is amazing that no one is stating the obvious here, but like, hello, being president is a full-time 24-hour on-call kind of gig. It ain't shift work. Remember, this is the sort of thing, oh, sorry, the president can't come to the phone now, it's past his bedtime, that once upon a time would have instantly been mocked around the globe. Who on earth thinks this is acceptable? Do we think Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un are all just had a Zoom call and said, hey, fellas, let's knock it off? No shenanigans until after 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Which brings us to the question of what is going on behind the scenes in the White House. Now, I know it's 4th of July weekend, but allow me to offer one gentle point of criticism to the Founding Fathers. You all didn't make it easy to suddenly change the president if the chief executive turns out to be dribbling into his cornflakes. That's why we have seen all the breathless speculation about the Democrats making a move to swap Joe out, if, of course, he consents to leave. And amazingly, this could be the next president of the United States if Joe decides to step down. Or she could be the next nominee if he decides, like LBJ in 1968, to simply not run again.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you. I love Venn diagrams. I really do. I love Venn diagrams. It's just something about those three circles. Wheels on the bus go round and round. I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
Ooh boy, you reckon this would have featured at all in that little Vlad G. Kim Zoom call? Yet there is a real push to bump Joe for Kamala, led by a group calling themselves the K-Hive. Completely unburdened by what has been, this K-Hive apparently uses coconut tree emojis and is apparently making a serious push to get Kamala put to the top of the ticket, which, as Democrat power brokers work out what to do now, has suddenly moved from a joke to a live option. Pretty incredible when you consider that Joe Biden, who, let's just say, hasn't always had the most noble things to say on the subject of race, brought Harris on not because of any particular skill set, but simply to shore up his vote with minorities and women. So the question is, how did we get here to this point? Well, it's been pretty amazing watching the dam break on the media's conspiracy of silence. Within the past 24 hours, the reliably corporate left Economist magazine became the latest publication to call for Biden's resignation. While the Washington Post editorial board, they literally took the liberty of writing Joe Biden's resignation speech for him. Normally, I approve of outsourcing bloated government jobs to the private sector, but not in this case. Because for all their protests now, the media is guilty of malpractice, of a serious dereliction of duty. They have decided to protect their readers from the truth, because if their readers knew the truth about Biden, well, they might vote Trump in again. And we can't have that, can we? I mean, I love this piece here from Olivia Nuzzi at New York Magazine, which reveals that for months and months she'd been hearing stories about Biden not remembering people's names, having to leave events early because he couldn't make it through them, and even having to have Jill whisper reminders to greet people, "Say hello, Joe," in his ear. But why are we just hearing about this now? Look, if you watch this program, you and I have seen the videos and been called plenty of names for being right. And so seeing everyone admit the obvious is, yes, somewhat satisfying. But frankly, I can't help but feeling like there is also some sort of long con going on here. I mean, this past week, the entire right side of politics has been reveling in the spectacle of the Democrats falling apart. And I'm not going to lie, that spectacle has been absolutely fantastic, very entertaining, as has the real sense of justice that so many people in and out of the White House who have been straight up lying to us about the mental and physical capacity of the leader of the free world, well, that they're finally being shown up in public for the mendacious hacks that they are. That said, let's be real about the media's pro-Kamala push. Part of this is simply a novelty factor. A president resigning midterm is vanishingly rare. Creepy old hair-sniffing Uncle Joe with all his malarkey talk is boring compared to Kamala Harris. But part of it is that the press, the same press whose members tell you that they are now issuing mea culpas for not picking up on Biden's apparent dementia, while at the same time asserting they would vote for roadkill over Donald Trump, believe that despite the coconut trees and the Venn diagrams and all the other weirdness, Kamala Harris will be easier to drag over the line, bringing suburban women and African Americans back into the fold after drifting towards Trump, and at the same time, keeping the Democrats in power. Any way you look at it, it's a mess, and our enemies are watching.